It's become a hub for
illicit activities,
sexual assault, and stop human trafficking gangs.
Human trafficking is big business. It generates about $150 billion a year globally in illegal profits. Traffickers exploit a number of companies to carry out their deeds, banks to launder money, planes to transport victims, and social media platforms to lure prospects. But there's one major sector where traffickers tend to hide in plain sight: hotels.
We know that sex trafficking takes place in hotels and hotel rooms. We also know that individuals working at hotels can be in situations of forced labor, and labor trafficking can take place at any point in a hotel's supply chain.
Human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to obtain some type of labor or commercial sex act. In the US, there were more than 10,000 reported cases of human trafficking in 2020, and 72% were related to sex trafficking. Large events like the Super Bowl are thought to bring a spike in sex trafficking due to a high influx of visitors. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated this issue. Criminals are able to abuse new hotel technology like contactless check-in, making it more difficult to spot signs of trafficking. All the while, waves of sex trafficking lawsuits continue to pile up against hotel chains.
Now, what we also saw during the pandemic was really a confirmation that trafficking is possible and profitable in the United States because there are systemic inequities and injustices that the pandemic really highlighted.
With the impact of COVID-19, civil lawsuits, and increased awareness, what are the major hotel chains doing to curb human trafficking? Hotels and motels are some of the most common venues for sex trafficking. Traffickers generally use the rooms for commercial sex acts, and the ability to pay in cash provides a sense of secrecy through finances. It's estimated that commercial sexual exploitation generates about $99 billion in illegal profits globally. These activities are unbeknownst to hotel management, according to the National Human Trafficking Hotline. But Nakia Vestal, a survivor of sex trafficking, says hotel staff are sometimes in on it.
Most traffickers on that scale, they always have a set location where they work. They always pick a hotel where they work because it's comfortable for them. They know the people at the front desk. The people at the front desk know what's going on. So, for them to say, "Oh, we don't know what's going on," if you see the same individual and these same girls come every day, you know what's going on.
In 2000, the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, or TVPA, was the first bill enacted to monitor, prevent, and criminalize trafficking. It also penalizes private entities that enable or are complicit with the illegal act. This law was a pivotal moment for survivors. Since then, major hotel brands, as well as smaller motels, have been sued for negligence, profiting from, and even promoting sex trafficking. Experts believe Risa Retrio filed the first ever civil claim against a motel or hotel for its role in human trafficking in 2015. The case was settled, and with it, hundreds of other victims have come forward with lawsuits. In 2019, 257 defendants were sued for sex trafficking, and 117 of the defendants were hotels, more than the 4 years prior combined. In 2020, 149 defendants were sued for sex trafficking, and nearly half were hotels. The hotels accused more frequently were Motel 6, Super 8 Motel, Days Inn, Red Roof Inn, and La Quinta.
The low-scale motels, they know what's going on. If you have a hotel where you have porn, where you can go in and there's a channel, you click a channel, you turn the TV on, porn's on the TV, that's a red flag right there.
Although they made up a smaller portion of cases, big-name hotel companies took the top headlines that year. In 2019, 6 major hotels, including Marriott, Wyndham, and Hilton, were sued by a woman for allegedly turning a blind eye to signs of trafficking in their franchised hotels to continue earning a profit. The defendants contend that they did not knowingly benefit financially from the plaintiff's sex trafficking venture. In the same month, 3 sex trafficking victims sued 3 major hotel chains in Houston for gross negligence. The U.S. Department of State estimates that there are 24.9 million trafficking victims worldwide at any given time. Human traffickers prey on adults and children of all ages and backgrounds, exploiting them for their own profit. People who come from systemically and historically marginalized groups are more likely to be targeted.
Especially when it comes to labor trafficking of guest workers in the US who are in the US on temporary guest work visas are very often targeted by traffickers, often because there are certain loopholes in that system that traffickers are exploiting. On the sex trafficking side, we absolutely see greater risk with LGBTQ youth, especially runaway and homeless youth, as well as Black and brown girls and women in Indigenous communities as well. Now, communities who have, again, experienced historic discrimination and all of the rippling effects from that.
It's been long believed that large events like Mardi Gras, the Olympics, and the Super Bowl lead to an influx of sex trafficking in the hotels of host cities. In 2021, the It's a Penalty campaign collaborated with other businesses, including Hilton Hotels, to educate, equip, and report human trafficking in Tampa, Florida during Super Bowl 55. As a result, calls in Tampa made to the National Human Trafficking Hotline saw a 166% increase compared to the same time period the previous year. However, there isn't any data supporting an influx in human trafficking during large events. Awareness campaign and media coverage is likely connected to an increase in reporting during these times. It's most likely that the same folks who were trafficked on Super Bowl Sunday were trafficked the Sunday before and the Sunday after, according to Polaris. These days, social media plays a big role in both recruitment and prevention. Traffickers can use it to impersonate, manipulate, and advertise their victim services. On the other hand, viral stories of sex trafficking attempts are sweeping the internet. But those sensationalized stories of attempted abduction in stores, malls, and parking lots can do more harm than good. Experts say traffickers typically use coercion or deception, not kidnapping and physical force.
Now, one of the most common myths that we see perpetuated on social media will be things like kidnapping schemes. Things like some sort of ruse to get someone to get out of their car, and then someone will come and kidnap them and then traffic them. Those situations are highly unlikely, very, very rare. We really do not hear about them on the National Human Trafficking Hotline. Now, when those types of situations are proliferated on social media, the type of disinformation, what ends up happening is people don't understand how trafficking really happens. They sort of miss the point that trafficking is most often perpetuated by psychological coercion, by people who a victim or survivor knows.
Since its enactment, the TVPA has been reauthorized and updated 5 times, each time providing more support for programs that serve victims. And more bills are being enacted on the state level. In 2018, California introduced a bill requiring hotels and motels to provide human trafficking awareness training once every 2 years for employees that are likely to come in contact with victims. Hotels such as Marriott have implemented their own training requirements for employees.
We recognize that a number of states and local jurisdictions are passing new legislation on human trafficking that puts new requirements on hotels, like instituting mandatory training and displaying signage and posters that educate guests about human trafficking that might be happening in hotels. We comply with all local laws, but we also have been implementing many of these efforts on a proactive basis long before those laws have been passed.
In 2011, Hilton signed the ECPAT Code, a voluntary set of principles travel companies can implement to prevent sexual exploitation and trafficking of children. By the end of 2020, 71% of Hilton's leaders from its portfolio of over 6,000 hotels have completed human trafficking training. Hyatt also has its own comprehensive human trafficking training and has made it mandatory for all global colleagues and new hires. Some of the signs hotel staff are asked to look for include patrons paying with cash, having few personal items, and refusing cleaning service for multiple days.
What they're really being trained to look out for are signs that someone else is controlling another person, trying to force them to do something that may or may not be something that they want to do. So oftentimes, trainings will look for red flag indicators that suggest that someone is controlling another person. That could be controlling their communications, whether or not they're able to talk freely.
Since the COVID-19 pandemic, hotels have implemented a number of changes, including contactless check-in, mobile key, and reduced room cleaning, all of which makes it easier for criminal activity to go under the radar. Despite these efforts, it's unclear just how much the trainings work to curb the amount of exploitation happening in the hospitality industry. It's a big investment, but Marriott says it's worth the effort.
Marriott has made a substantial investment in developing both versions of our human trafficking awareness training and a number of accompanying resources. In addition, we also require all on-property associates to complete the training, so we compensate them for the time it takes to do so. The training is 60 minutes for associates and 80 minutes for managers, which really amounts to hundreds of thousands of hours spent on this training and underscores the importance of this effort for us and the significant investment we've made in it.
Due to its importance in housing, transporting, and selling victims, the cooperation of private sector companies in combating human trafficking is crucial. Although hotels and motels are unwilling participants, most agree they have a responsibility to detect, monitor, and report potential trafficking.